Hello to you once again. Thank you for joining us on the Sport Chippers YouTube channel. My guest today is the former Forest striker Simon Cox. He's got plenty to tell you about playing under Billy Davies, Sean O'Driscoll and the month of Alex McLeish as well, and what it was like generally playing under Fawaz Al-Hassawi as the owner of the club. He's got some brilliant stories to tell you, stuff you won't have heard before about playing in that time as well. Simon Cox is on the way. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like. It spreads it to more people and helps me out immensely. And if you haven't yet, do subscribe to the channel as well. There is plenty of interest for you if you look back over time as well. Let's hear though from Simon Cox, the former Forest striker, next. Simon, great to see you again. I was going to start off with that goal that you scored for Forest against Birmingham, and I think for as long as everything is going well, you'll be remembered for that goal by most Forest fans. Talk us through it, because it was a special moment.
Yeah, it was probably the highlight of my Forest career, I guess. But I just remember it from even the week building up. I was away with Ireland and came off injured. I was on crutches for a few days, and then I was late fitness testing on the Thursday, Friday. I was touch and go whether I was going to be on the bench, and I was on the bench, and we were getting beat, and I had this big strapping on my foot, big padding because I rolled my ankle. So I got the chance. Obviously, we were getting beat into the second half, and I got the call to go on, and yeah, it's one I've rewatched about a million times. So on YouTube, I'm probably the highest viewer of the goal. But yeah, I just remember, Lewis, he tried to make a pass, it got cut out, and then he had to go and win the ball back, which he did. And then he hit, a 40-yard diagonal pass over the shoulder of the defenders, which I made the run in behind, and I was lucky enough that as I controlled it, it popped up nicely, and Jack Butland was in goal, so he came rushing out and just lobbed it over him. I think it sort of makes it a lot better, the fact that he was an England international at the time, and probably talked about as the next big thing in goalkeeping terms. So yeah, it was like a really nice goal to be involved in.
That was the highlight, I would think, of your Forest career then. How do you look back across the whole what turned out to be a 2-year period?
Yeah, I mean, I was really, really excited when I joined. It was a real transitional period at the time, and Omar had come in and sort of sold the dream of the club and where it wanted to go. And
this is Fawaz's cousin. You signed for Fawaz's cousin, did you, rather than Fawaz?
Yeah. So I mean, it was a great project for him. It was something that he, I looked at and thought, yeah, big football club, needed to be back in the Premier League, should be back in the Premier League, stature of the club, history of the club, all that sort of stuff. And he said, look, we're going to have a go at it. So that was the big draw, really. So started off really well. Me personally, the club, scored a few goals straight away, which was great. But things started to unravel pretty quickly, and then just never really stopped spiraling out of control.
Was there a point? What was maybe there was one point, or it was a culmination of things. Where you knew, things weren't quite what I signed up for in the summer?
Probably when Omar decided to leave, Fawaz came in, and then about 3 managers later, that was probably the case. And then I remember, we'll touch on it probably under Billy, when Fawaz started trying to pick the team. You could tell then that it was, not really run the way it should be run, and the people who need to make the decisions aren't making the decisions. The people who, need to be putting the money in shouldn't be making the footballing decisions. That's just the way football clubs should work. But that wasn't the way it was going. So probably at that stage when that was happening is probably when you realise that this isn't what it should be.
We weren't talking to Billy at that time for various reasons, which we've got into before. We won't go into now. But how did he? I mean, of all the managers to try and tell how to pick which player and that player, I don't think I'd have had the bravery, frankly, to tell Billy. How was he about that point?
Not great. I remember he pulled me and Darius Henderson into a meeting room before the Burnley game, which was the game that I then realised that Fawaz was trying to pick the team, and he said, "Listen, I've just got a message from the owner. He's telling me that I have to play Rafiq and Jamal." So you can then really turn around to hear, like he was like looking at it, going, we'll give them 45, 50, 60 minutes or whatever it is, and if they're not doing it, they'll be getting the hook and they won't play again. But the game, if I can remember the game, it was we drew 1-1 or 2-2 in the game, and they did okay, but it wasn't anything that they deserved to play the next week and the week after and stuff like that. It was so it was, yeah. I mean, Billy, he didn't take lightly to it. I know that.
When you're a player in that situation as well, you must think this is a bit of a circus now. If the manager is effectively admitting that to me, you kind of, in a sense, the game's over, don't you?
Yeah, like I said before, it's not the way football clubs should be run, and yourself, Billy is very strong-minded. He's a little bit probably too strong-minded at times, and but ultimately he knows what he knows and he likes what he likes, and if you sort of get in the way of that, then you sort of come up against him. So he, in uncertain terms or no uncertain terms, he said, this isn't the way it should be working, and I don't like it working this way, but sometimes you kind of have to play the game a little bit. But if it happens more than once or twice, then it becomes a little bit of a farce. And I think that's probably where it sort of came unraveled a little bit more than it had done previously.
Let's go back to the beginning. We'll come back to Billy and that time in a bit. But you signed for Sean O'Driscoll as manager. Tell us a bit about how the move happened from your perspective and what it was like to play under Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I had two clubs interested in me. It was Forest and Blackburn. I was obviously living in Birmingham after playing at West Brom, so it was down the road. If I'm being truthful, I wanted to go to Blackburn because I felt it. Well, one, it was a monetary thing. The money was ridiculous, and it would have set my family up for life. But it never materialised, and then I met Omar, and I can't remember who the director of football was at the time.
Keith Burt, was it?
Yeah, Keith, that's it. So I met Keith, and they sold the football club to me, and then in the end it was a good decision for me. I met Sean. Real strange meeting straight away. Met him at obviously you've been to the training ground. Met him at that little round table outside the lift. Just outside
in
his
the foyer.
office. Yeah. And it was really strange. Like he such a nice sort of placid guy, softly spoken, not really gonna argue with anybody. Met him and Rob Kelly the same, at the same meeting. Spoke through how he wanted to play and what my aspirations were and what I wanted to achieve and stuff like that. And it seemed like a really good fit. And then I signed after taking a trip around the training ground, around the stadium, and getting a really good feel for what seemed to be a really exciting project.
And it seems that that kind of manager and that type of football would suit your style, I would think, as well. It does seem as though it would be well adapted to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sean, he wanted to play nice football. He wanted to get people into pockets and play attacking football, which was always, any striker would say is always music to your ears, really. The last thing you want to do is be playing defensive football and defending all the time. So that wasn't the case for us. And like I said, we started off pretty well. I can remember scoring a couple of goals really early on. My first goal away at Huddersfield, and I just I felt like it was a team that was exciting. It was a team ready to push on, and with a few additions, we would be a team to be feared in under Sean and under the way that he wanted to play.
Because he did want to play a certain way, didn't he? And he brought players in that he knew, Simon Gillett, people like that, who were going to play the same kind of way. And it felt like things were, it wasn't going to be a stroll towards automatic promotion, but it felt like things were improving slowly and steadily.
Yeah, absolutely. It was always going to be a process. And I don't think he would have been short on availability of bringing people in. As you said, there was a big turnaround of people who came in that summer. Danny Collins was one, me, Simon Gillett was another. There was enough people that sort of came through the door early on that you looked at and thought, good footballers, no superstars, but hard-working people who've been in probably the top division who needed to get their careers back on track or needed to prove a point for some reason. But it was one that you looked at and thought, this is a good group who could achieve.
And it swung from Sean to Alex McLeish, and I mean that's quite a contrasting styles, I would say, between the two. 6 months before, you've brought in players who are going to play a certain way and keep the ball on the ground, and suddenly you brought in a manager who plays it in a different way. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, how did that appointment go down with the squad as a whole?
Yeah, I think it was a tough one because I think Alex McLeish had, he a year or two before had obviously just won the I think it was a League Cup or FA Cup with Birmingham, and he had a sort of winning agenda around him, if you'd say it that way. So I think Fawaz must have looked at him and thought, well, he can win that, so he can win this with us, and he obviously I think he got Birmingham promoted as well at one stage, or kept him in the Premier League at one stage. So I think he sort of saw that as a manager who could bring success to us. But I don't think he'd done his due diligence on the type of football that he played and the history of Nottingham Forest Football Club, the way they played their football. So they obviously weren't a marriage made in heaven. It was more, a sort of look at what I can bring instead of, well, no, actually look at the way the football club's meant to be. And the football's meant to be played at this football club, and we'll try and do it the right way instead of doing it the quick way. So it was tough. And like you said, when you bring in the players at the start of the season who try and play a certain way, all of a sudden now they're being asked to play in a completely different way. And I just remember one of the games at the City ground, and the fans started singing that we're Nottingham Forest and we play on the floor. And that was obviously a big dig at Alex McLeish's style of football. And it, it didn't last very long. And probably understand why. As
a player, you're probably sitting in the dugout at that point thinking, "Yep, I go along with what the fans are thinking." Don't they?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we were a group of players who wanted to play sort of free-flowing, exciting football on the floor, passing it to each other, and creating a lot of opportunities. We weren't the ones who wanted to get out your feet from the back and bypass your midfield players and kick it up to Big Dex or Darius or whoever was playing up there and get around it. That wasn't a way that we wanted to play. But you kind of have to do what the manager is telling you. But you're going against your beliefs as a squad, and that's not a great thing. And like I said, it didn't last very long. So yeah, I think it was a it was definitely a short period of time that we weren't happy for.
And then Billy comes in. We've touched on Billy already, but he was kind of probably somewhere in the middle, isn't it? Because he's very pragmatic as a manager. That he would play it long if he needed to, and he felt that was the way to win. But also play some fantastic footballers as well. I think every player I've spoken to, I don't think a single player I've ever spoken to hasn't respected Billy Davies and got on with him. So if you're the same, and I assume you are, what is it about him that kind of engenders that loyalty?
Oh, I think it's more that he's just a great guy. Like, just in terms of every day, the intensity, what he demanded from each player. Training was tough, you know, it was hard. I mean, I just remember even like one of our first games, Ned Kelly would take it the first part of the warm-up. I mean, he couldn't run, but it was more that we would normally just go out and play a little bit of keep ball, whatever, to start like warm up for the game. But they would get us doing widths of the pitch, and it was like you'd do it and you'd be absolutely on your feet before the game, but it got your mind ready for what was going to be an intense game. You know, and that was just the way that they wanted to work. They wanted to work high intensity. They wanted to work at a level that they felt that if we played at that level, we would blitz everybody. And they ran the club the best way that they saw fit. He has his downfalls, his paranoia and everything else, but predominantly he's just he knows when to have a laugh and a joke. He knows when to be double serious, and he's, you know, when he's on good form, he's great value. When he's in a bad mood, you know, he's a raging bull. So, but he left no stone unturned. Every game, every player knew exactly what their roles were in the team, and we knew exactly what the opposition were going to do and who we were coming up against, and their strengths, their weaknesses, everything else. So, you know, from a player's point of view, he was brilliant.
Did you like him? Did you respect him? A bit of both. Would you ever say he was a friend, or was it always a very business-like relationship?
No, I would say he's a friend. You know, I just I wouldn't say we butted heads. I'd say that there was a few times where I wanted to play a certain way. Like, for me personally, I wanted my position and me to play a certain way, and he wanted me to sort of be the up play as a striker, and, you know, we'll get you the ball. And I was like, well, no, I don't like not having a touch after 5 minutes. I kind of want to get involved in the play. And he's like, but I want you to score. I want you to score goals. I don't want you to be. I'd rather you score goals and not, you know, have, you know, 500 touches of the ball. And because I remember one game we played Millwall at home, and it was on a Tuesday night, I think, and I went into him on the Wednesday or the Thursday, and he was in a bad mood. So it wasn't a great decision on my part, but I went in anyway. And I was like, look, you know, I didn't enjoy that last night. I didn't feel part of it. I felt like I was sort of doing a lot of nothing, standing around. I felt like, you know, if that's the position you want me to play, I'm not your man, sort of thing. And we had like a real big argument in his office, and I was just sat there and I was like, you know, probably wasn't a wise decision to go in, but he knew where I was coming from and I understood what he was saying. So there was obviously a mutual respect in there. But I mean, even under Billy, I played a lot of, you know, so a lot of my games, sometimes in the early part, especially was out wide. You know, he could trust me that I'd work hard. Listen, goals probably weren't free flowing as much as he would like, or even as much as I would like, but ultimately he knew he could trust what I was doing, the work rate I would give for the team, and he used to pick me pretty much on a regular basis on the basis of that.
How aware were you as a squad of and I appreciate the squad was always very close together. The one thing Billy did was always bring almost a them and us type mentality. But all the off the field crap that was going on at the time, the shenanigans, did that affect you at all, or did you laugh at it, or what?
As players,
Yeah.
No, we not really. It wouldn't affect us because you knew that he would deal with it. Anything that he'd be open and honest and brutally honest at some stages by turning around and going, these lot out there, they want to come against us and it's all about us. And so we'll deal with it in here. Let me deal with them. And you just thought he will, we'll let him deal with it because let you just concentrate on the football and I'll deal with all the rubbish that's going on out there. And, if they hate me, they hate me. That's fine. No problem. But if they want to hate us within here, we know what we're doing. So let's just continue and focus on what we're doing. So, and more times than not, he dealt with a lot of things.
It did unwind pretty quickly for him in the end, didn't it? It culminated in that thumping at Derby, but it had gone pear-shaped before then. It didn't feel like you could win at Derby because of what had happened before. I think the scoreline was a shock, but it wasn't a massive surprise that you'd lost at Derby.
No, and again, similar to sort of Sean, we were just in a really bad run. And when you, like I said before, when you have sort of trigger finger happy owners, you lose a few games, and the thing is, with somebody like Billy, when you lose a few games, the sort of paranoia heightens, and then it sort of spirals out of control instead of being in control of what you can control. I think he went the other way and went, well, no, I'll try and control everything, and it's impossible. You can't do that. So, and I think he lost a little bit of what we were doing. We still trained hard, we still worked hard, we still tried to win games of football, but the noises outside were more heightened, and they sort of started creeping in a little bit more. And there was always that. The rumours of like snakes in the dressing room, of leaking things back to the owners and all that sort of stuff. And that just wasn't, that wouldn't have happened early Billy days. He would have got rid of them.
So was that happening, or was that something that he imagined?
Yeah, it was. No, it was happening.
Right.
But he couldn't deal with it because of like the situation we were in, the noises from outside and the owner, and what was happening with results and everything else. And it just got too far beyond his control, and that was, it was just unfortunate. And then it culminated in the result at Derby, and majority of Forest managers will tell you that if you go into that game and you win, your job's pretty safe for the rest of the season, I'd guess. If you lose that game or you don't win either of the derbies, your job's, is close to being on the chopping block. So, you get beat and you get well beaten, and it's your live on Sky and all that sort of stuff. And it just wasn't a good look for him and for us as a club and us as a team.
More to come from Simon Cox in a moment. He'll tell you about his departure from the City Ground, how much of a shock it was when he was told he could leave, and how he was almost part of a deal that brought Mikel Antonio to the club from Sheffield Wednesday. That on the way very soon. Need to tell you about Chippers Club. If you've not joined yet, I'll pop the link in the description below to become a gold, silver or bronze member of Chippers Club. You'll get to see extended interviews, so there'll be a longer version of this interview with Simon Cox. You'll get to see it early as well. You'll get a mention on screen, and you get the opportunity to join in Q&A sessions as well, exclusive, and they're live, and you can ask a question at any point during those Q&As as well. As I say, the link is in the description below. I need to thank my gold members as they stand at the moment. So thank you to Paul Harrison, to Christian Tonnies, to Perry, also to James Sorden, to Thomas Newton, and to Mark German as well. Plenty of you have become members of varying levels over the past month or so. Do join Chippers Club. The link is in the description below, and you can also sign up there and get much more from the channel. But let's get back to Simon Cox. Gary Brazil comes in as caretaker afterwards, and then I think it's announced pretty quickly after Billy had gone that Stuart Pearce would come in, but not till the summer. And you left. You'd have trained under Pearce, I think, but you probably didn't play, or you definitely didn't play under Stuart Pearce. So what happened there? Why did you kind of fall out of favour, as it were?
So I was in the last year of my contract, the summer that he came in, Stuart Pearce, and I came back to pre-season, was doing really well, was like felt good, was getting fitter every day, you know, was training really well, felt like I was back to where I should be, really. And I had a conversation with Stuart on the training pitch, walking off from one of the sessions. And I said to him, I said, listen, I'm in the last year of my contract. You know, I really like it here. Family are settled here. You know, would you be open to talking about new contracts? You know, like I say, I like it here. And he said, look, you know, I'm not really too sure on where we're at right now. It's not something that's at the forefront of my mind. So we'll talk again, you know, as the season goes on. No problem. You know, I just thought, right, keep doing your stuff, you know, and then all of a sudden you go into the games and you start the season really well. And then all of a sudden the contract talks start up again. So fine, no problem. Then we go to play West Brom in a pre-season friendly at the City Ground. And I'm in the dressing room, you know, he hasn't named who's starting the game or who's on the bench or anything else like that. It was just obviously pre-season, so it was name your team as you sort of get to the stadium. And I'm sat there, and he knocks on the dressing room door, and he says, "Coxie, can I have a chat?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem." Thinking, no, you know, you're going to play today, doing really well, really enjoying what you're doing in training, that sort of thing. Feeling really good about myself. And he says, "Look, I want you to be I want you to be the make weight deal in the Michail Antonio deal from Sheffield Wednesday to here, and you go the other way." And you just hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, from feeling good about myself and the way I was training and everything else, I just went, no. He said, "Look, you're not in the squad today. You know, you can go home." So I sort of got dressed and went back into my car and drove up to my house. And, you know, I sat with my missus and my mother-in-law at the time. They were up, and I was like, I said, I'm done. You know, I'm not wanted at the football club anymore. I don't need to be at the game. I probably don't need to be in training for the next few days. So, you know, I'll get on the phone to my agent and say, you know, what he's just told me, and get him to look for a new club for me. I said, because I wasn't from an ego point of view, or from somebody who just come back from the Euros and things like that. I just felt like I didn't want to go to and be part of a make weight of a deal that they wanted a player. And I always feel that if the club bringing the player in, or always want the one who's coming this way, me going the other way, Sheffield Wednesday probably didn't want me as a player. And then all of a sudden I'm stuck in Sheffield for 2 seasons and I'm not wanted there, or, you know, I never feel that that's a good thing to be a part of. So I said to myself, like, if I'm ever going to go somewhere, it's where I want to go and not where Stuart Pearce wants me to go. So I ended up going to Reading, which was, you know, good for me because it was back home. It was, you know, my hometown club, and a club that I know very, very well. So it was, it was probably after that chat with Stuart at the game, it was probably a week later I'd left.
I mean, in a sense, were you fortunate? It obviously didn't feel like it at the time, but were you fortunate that Reading were willing to take you and you could come to a deal and whatever? Because otherwise, you might have sat at Forest, presumably not in the squad for a whole season.
Yeah, uh, I could have got to a stage where, I sat at Forest and picked up my wages, trained well, badly. It would have made no difference to being selected for the team, um, but it would have made a difference to me. I could have got to that stage, but that wasn't the type of person, or that isn't the type of person that I am. It wasn't the type of player that I am. So the best thing for me was to leave and go and play football. I wanted to go and play. And when you get a chance to go back to your hometown club, and listen, if it hadn't have been Reading, it had been somebody else. I would have been, at least I would have gone to a club that wanted me. The idea of going somewhere who doesn't want you and is taking you on the decision of a make way is not something that sits right with me. So going back to my hometown club was something that actually, I felt really good about. And it sort of sit well with me and my family, and it was nice to be back home.
We talked a bit about potentially going to Sheffield and then going to Reading and the distance. In the end, via Southend, which is obviously the best move of your career, I would think, to play for God's own club. But we'll gloss over that potentially, because I know it was a time of the club going down the Swanee, which it's still not recovered from. But you moved to Sydney. You moved out here to Sydney to play for Western Sydney Wanderers. I mean, how much of a decision was that to move to? You talked about moving to Reading. What about moving to the other side of the world?
Yeah, it was. Do you know what? It was a really good decision. It was a similar thing, really. It was a decision that was sort of made upon me that I got a call from Marcus Babbel towards the end of the season 2019, I think it was.
He was Western Sydney manager at the time.
Yeah. And being a Liverpool fan, you get a call from Marcus Babbel, obviously played at Liverpool. I thought, oh yeah, this is nice. And he said, look, I've watched a lot of your games. I love you as a player. I want you to come. And I had to turn around to him and say, listen, I've got another year on my contract. Unless you're going to buy me, I don't think the club will let me leave. So, and he said, look, well, we don't buy anybody. We need you to, strike a deal with the club and get them to allow you to leave. And I was like, that's tough after just staying up and hitting a lot of goals that season for the club, for Southend. I thought that's going to be a tough one for the chairman of Southend to allow me to leave, and that wouldn't have gone down well with the supporters. So then, things started to happen at Southend. Sol Campbell come in, and we didn't start well the season. And then New Year's Eve, I get pulled into the office and get told, the club's going in a different direction. You're not wanted anymore. So go
the direction being
yeah. So again, I phoned my agent. I said, is the Sydney thing, is the Australia thing still open? So he made a phone call. They said yes. So I was like, then it's all of a sudden you go from New Year's Eve, sitting down with the missus and saying, look, I've got an opportunity to go out to Australia. What do you think? And, it probably gave me an extra couple of years of playing football, because I don't know what I would have done if I'd have stayed at Southend. I don't know if I'd have, carried on playing. I needed an operation, and I moved out to Sydney. My missus stayed here. So that was tough, long distance relationship. But you know what? I absolutely loved it. It was brilliant. And I couldn't speak highly enough of Wanderers, the club, and Australia as a country. I thought it was excellent.
Because of the football, or the lifestyle,
everything.
or right?
Everything, absolutely everything. I thought, I came over after a real hard time with the bushfires, all the travesty that went on with that. So I came out middle of January, and I mean, you go from sunny Southend to actual sunny Sydney, and it's a little bit different. And it was 35, 38 degree heat. Obviously, the residual heat from the bushfires still knocking about. So yeah, it was a proper climate change. Something to get used to. Training in the heat was something I had to get used to. Playing in the heat was something I had to get used to. But the lifestyle was amazing. Getting up, there's a lot to be said about waking up with the sunshine every day. Well, as you're seeing today, it's not that sunny.
Most days, yeah.
Yeah. And going into, you don't mind getting up early because the sun's shining. You don't mind driving into training and training early because the sun's on your back and you've got the rest of the day to do whatever you like. And because it's, it's still in its infancy. The league is very relaxed. The travel's, an issue, but that's because the country's massive. The lifestyle that you lead out there, the food's amazing. It's all fresh food, pretty much. I just absolutely loved it. If I didn't have the missus and now the little one, I probably wouldn't have come home.
Is it a possibility that because you want to be involved in coaching and things like that? Would you come back or?
Listen, like I say, I'd love to. I would. I'd move out there in a heartbeat. But yeah, I don't like. My missus came over for 2 weeks in my 18-month spell there. She was over 2 weeks of the year. That was the 2 weeks of 18 months. So and in those 2 weeks, she got torrential rain. She got like gale force winds. We had power cuts. We had water shortages. We had everything all in the 2 weeks that she decided to turn up. So she just turned around and went, "This is rubbish." So and she never came back. She never came back. So no, I don't think. Listen, I always say never, but I don't think it's like she would have to do a massive U-turn on her decision to come to sort of move over there for a short period of time. But like I say, I would love to.
Tell us to watch what you've said in the last minute or so on the video. You've sold it brilliantly. I'm just going to wrap things up, Simon, by talking about what's next for you. What do you want to be, a manager, a coach, or what's the plan from here on in?
Yeah, so one of the reasons when I was at Sydney, towards the end, obviously my missus had the baby whilst I was in Sydney, so that was a tough one. But while I was there, it gave me an opportunity to do a master's. It gave me an opportunity to finish off my A license, and so that's the sort of direction I want to go. I want to go into management. I want to start my journey. I've probably applied for 10, 12 jobs so far since I've been back, but it's always that cliche of you need experience, and you sometimes have to turn around to people and go, "Sorry, I was a little bit busy of having a 17-year playing career than I was about having a coaching career at that time." So, the job that I'm looking for just hasn't come up yet. I'm always on the lookout. I'm always open to going into clubs and learning. I've reached out to every contact pretty much that I've got and I've amassed over the playing career. To go in and learn and watch and study and it's just something I've got a real big desire for. I want to get on the journey and I want to get on it as quick as possible. I don't necessarily want to be a manager just yet. I feel like you have to learn your stripes. So anybody who is able to give me the opportunity to come in and be assistant, because I can tell you everything that you need to know about being a player. I know exactly what you have to do day to day, week to week, month to month, but I can't tell you anything what it's like to plan sessions weekly, monthly, and prepare for games and that sort of thing. So I want to learn that. I want to go in and have that opportunity to fail, because I feel like sometimes you learn a lot more when you fail. But I also want to be part of a team that is successful, and the way that I was as a player, the intensity that I like working at and like players to work at, even doing some of the small coaching things that I do at the minute. I get people to work really hard, because I feel like nowadays you see the top teams, they're the fittest teams, and but it's just something I've got a real big desire for, coaching and management.
I wish you all the best with it. And I really appreciate your time. Last time we spoke, I think, was in we bumped into each other in a golf course out in Sydney, which was a very random thing to do. But there we are. That's the way the world works. All the best for the future.
I didn't like that course when I played there.
No, it is tough, isn't it? It is quite difficult.
It is a tough course.
Thanks, Simon. All the best.
Top man. Cheers, mate.